Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We got an amazing show coming up. And you'll know why if you're a fan of Swamp Dweller coming on up. No, it's not Swamp Dweller coming on. It's a gentleman named Elias Ramos coming on. And a letters to a cryptid hunter. Oh, I'm so excited. I literally go to bed listening to this. And I'm so pumped up. I am so pumped up. I feel like I'm at a concert with my favorite band on stage right now. All right. Before we bring Elias on to start the show, we're going to say hello to each and every one of you. Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position. Race fan with a silver. Tim Mothman and his goatee sharing the bronze medal tonight. So let's say hello to the rest of you now. Shall we? Bar Madison, Robert Lamoth, Jaquetta, and Mama Catherine. I love you, my dear. I hope you love tonight's show. I really think you will. And thank you for the beautiful message this morning. You mean the world to me. Thank you, Mama Catherine. Love you. All right, moving on. We have to say hello next to, let's scroll down some more. Mel WD-40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show because because our beautiful guest tonight, Elias, says, Dave, I'm not coming on the show unless I get lubed up. So Mel is currently lubing up Elias as we speak. Okay? So if Elias comes on and he's got a little bit of sheen to him, you can blame Mel. All right? That's just the way it is. Thanks, Mel WD-40. Appreciate you. Scrolling on down, Frankie B, Mickey G, how are you? And who is next on our list? Let's go. Where are we? Oh, boy, lots of conversation going on. Look at you guys just conversing. That's awesome. Who's next? Race fan, we got you. Digger Dog is here. Digger Dog will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Eternity Eternal, how are you tonight? Tim Mothman and his goatee. Nice to see you. And your goatee as well. Let's see here. Athena, nice to have you back. D Cypher, good to see you as we continue on with our roll call. Flat 6, nice to have you here. Undead Jed, thank you for coming on in. Operation Shutdown, good to see you. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. As we scroll on down, next we have number 32 in your program, starting in goal tonight from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Eva is here. Eva will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, The Unknown, how are you? Nice to have you here. Noble Patrick, thanks for coming on in. Hippie Deidre, good to see you. And Ozzy Rob is here. How's them Ham Hawks doing? Give us an update if you don't mind. We'd like that. Give us an update, Ozzy Rob. Please do. And who else do we got? We got Erica Stover and Jose Sanchez. River Dog, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. I'll be right back here. Hold on. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to have a great time tonight talking to Elias Ramos, and we're going to get into Letters of a Cryptid Hunter. It's going to be a lot of fun coming up here momentarily. We are on our roll call here on YouTube as we say hello to Jay Truthseeker, as we say hello to Matthew Goodka, Luscious Jewels, Country Life. Nice to see you both here. And who's next? Aussie Boss Tiger. Thanks for coming on in. And are we caught up? I think we're caught up. If I haven't, just say hello again in the chat room. I will get to you. Reminder to all of you, a great way to support this show is through the super chats. It's a wonderful way to do you to us, if that makes sense. I don't think it does, but it came out that way. Jerence Carter, nice to see you. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, and it's open 24/7. And Road Flare, nice to have you here. Kurt M., Mr. Cowley, horns up. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an incredible show tonight. We're getting into the creepypasta. Elias Ramos is here to talk about the letters of a cryptid hunter. You have no idea how excited I am about this one. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off with a spooky story. We're going to follow that up with the UFO wizard, Josh Rutledge, coming on in for the UFO report. Okay, I have to move. Usually I read a bio off the bat here, and I will get to that in a little bit, but I got to tell you a story. I do. And it's a cool story because it ties into tonight's show. So almost every night I go to bed listening to Swamp Dweller on YouTube because he's got spooky stories and he bounces around. Well, a number of years ago when I started interviewing Swamp Dweller and we became very good friends, he had this story on his YouTube channel called Letters of a Cryptid Hunter. And I absolutely fell in love with these stories. And I would be trying to fall asleep. At times I'd be so tired that I needed to get to bed and I just couldn't because I had to keep listening to these stories. And eventually I'd fall asleep and then the next night I'd have to rewind and try and find the spot that I left off at the night before to restart again. And this would go on and on, night after night after night. And I listened to them all. Well, little did I know that the creator of those letters is our guest tonight. I found out literally a couple hours before showtime. And I literally screamed like a schoolgirl, because I was so excited that Elias Ramos was the one who helped with these. It's his creation. It's his knowledge. And that rarely happens. And it just made me really excited to do tonight's show. So who is Elias? Well, let's tell you about him. This guy is trained in the acting department of Baltimore School for the Arts and majoring in English at Williams College. Elias Ramos is dedicated to writing and sharing engaging stories. Having visited and lived in 32 countries on 5 continents. He speaks 3 languages and has studied topics ranging from mythology and language to zoology and ecology. His first publicly distributed stories, rather, are the letters from a cryptid hunter, which tell the experiences of Sam White Owl. Oh, I get goosebumps just saying that. Okay, a member of a global organization that deals with cryptids and monsters. The 19-episode series of this, which is absolutely awesome, was put on YouTube Acclaim thanks to Swamp Dweller. Yeah. So it's one big tie into what we do here on SOR. And I am so excited to have Elias Ramos. Elias, thank you so much for coming on Speak Style Radio, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm a little tired. This is what time is it? It's 12:10. It's after midnight. I'm East Coast, so I'm 3 hours behind you guys. But no, I'm good.
Let me tell you, how did you find the love for creative writing?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I've just always loved telling stories, you know. I've always been into just like creating worlds, creating creatures, languages, worlds. And when I was in, I didn't really get started until I was in like 4th grade. I went to this, it was like a summer camp, you know, a creative writing camp. And I just kind of fell in love with it. It was all about, you know, we would read books and then we would write like short stories because, you know, we'd be like, oh, so did you see how they did this in the story? How, you know, this is like how we could translate that to our stuff. And yeah, so ever since then, 4th grade, goodness, I was like 9. Yeah, ever since then, I've just, you know, I've been about it. Hello, people in the chat. People are, wow, oh my goodness. Thank you, people in the chat. Everybody in the chat is greeting me and saying hello. Thanks, guys. Hi.
Oh yeah, we got a very engaging chat room for our radio audience.
Yeah, I can see.
They are very engaging on our YouTube chat during the show, and I'll tell you, they love our guests. They really do. And I'm excited to have you here because very rarely do I ever hear something that absolutely engages me. And I've been a big fan of Swamp Dweller for a number of years. I think when I hit subscribe on his YouTube channel, I think he was less than 100,000. I think he was around 50,000 subscribers.
Oh wow, you were early.
Subscribers, and I was just like, I have to meet this guy. And I messaged him one day on email, and I said, dude, I need to interview you. I literally listen to you every night. And, you know, props to him. He's up to, I think, 330.
Yeah, I think 300 plus. Yeah.
Stupid like that. And when you get to know his story, he actually, when he started the Swamp Dweller channel, he was living in his car in a Walmart parking lot. And he used the Walmart Wi-Fi in order to download the stories.
What?
That's how it started.
How did I not know this? Wait, I've heard you interview him. How have I not heard this? That's wild. Wow, good for you, Swamp.
Yeah. And him and I became really good friends. And I asked him, I said, you know, I want to spice things up, you know, give a little change in our show format. Would you mind if I started using some of your programs, some of your stories to kick off our hour 3? And I didn't even finish it. He's like, yep, you go ahead. Anyone you want.
Sick.
Just take it. And I'm like, that is awesome. I just love the guy. Big love and shout out to Robin Tia, aka Swamp Dweller. Yeah. He is absolutely amazing and an incredible musician as well. He's in a thrash metal band, lead singer of a thrash metal band. I forget what it's called, but
oh shoot, wait, I just saw this the other day. I've been trying to get in touch with him because I'm like, dude, we need, you know, I was like, Swamp, we need you to like put this out, you know, Burn Absolute. That's it. Yeah.
Burn Absolute. That's right.
Burn Absolute. Yeah. Because I was like, Swamp, we need your help, man. Not your help, but like, you know, people loved the Sam White, the Letters from a Cryptid Hunter on his channel. So I was like, Swamp, you know, we would love for you to put out a video, but I haven't been able to get in touch with him for a while now. So I'm hoping he will.
I think he's on tour. I think they're touring right now.
No way. That is wild. Just thinking about that they're actually like on tour. That's crazy. That he's big. He's big. That's wild.
I know. I mean, It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. We're going to get into Letters of a Cryptid Hunter when we turn the corner after our first break at the bottom of the hour. I'm very curious about your love of these weird, strange creatures that are going around in our forests, in our dreams, in the sky above. How did this all begin for you?
I never really had an experience, but I've always been okay. So I'll just say I'm autistic, and I don't know. I should, my parents are gonna be like, "Don't say that so casually." Whatever. I just have a lot of like niche, weird interests, and the reason I say that is because, I've always been into just kind of like stuff that was out there. And while other kids were, interested in like cars and stuff, other boys, right? That was kind of like the boy thing was like you were young, you're into cars or dinosaurs. I still do. I love dinosaurs. Like I never got off that phase. So dinosaurs, and not just like them. I was like deep into them. Like I literally have a shelf in my bookshelf that's devoted to just like my dinosaur books. And so I got in there and I was like, these are such interesting, strange, like unfamiliar creatures. They're not here anymore, And it was just kind of imagining that world. What was it like back then? Because it was our world, it's our planet, but what was it like? What were these creatures like? How did they live? How did they move? And so that was one big thing. And then the other thing, and I love animals, and obviously we can talk about that more at the Sam White Owl thing, but I just love animals, and I always have. And animals, again, are just sort of like, they live right alongside us and we know them, and I grew up like being around them and loving them, but we kind of don't think about that, especially like, kind of in the West, our urban westernized world. We don't really think about like, all the other beings that like literally live all around us, So it's like, what are they like? And then from there, just kind of interest in like culture, languages. I've had a lot of different experiences. And I mean, we can maybe talk about this later, but like my family is very diverse. Well, you kind of read it in my bio. I've done a lot of traveling. I'm really into like culture, myths, languages. So getting to learn all of that is like, why aren't we experiencing all of this other stuff as well? And then of course that kind of leads to like, well, people are talking about this other stuff, like Sasquatch and Dogman and Wendigo. Like I've heard these stories, like, but why are we? They're right there, What level of truth is there to them, and what is it about? What's going on here? And I didn't really get into the more like cryptid stuff until kind of more recently, in more recent years. But growing up, I just love like mythology and stuff, and so I was always into like stories of just weird myths and legends and stuff, and like how does that interact with our world? So always wanting to just kind of experience that. So I guess that kind of meandered and developed and branched off in different ways as I grew up, and now we're here.
I think it's absolutely great that you're able to put pen to paper and create something that allures people, and maybe their scariest nightmares or their wildest of dreams, or even their own true encounters. Have you ever thought about the impact your stories have had?
Actually, you know what? Let me just mention really fast. I'm sorry. I have had experiences, but it's not what kind of like kicked off the writing and stuff. But have I ever thought about how they impact people? Yes, but I think the largest reason, as I was growing up and I was writing, it was always just like, it was mainly for, family, friends, right? Like I didn't publish anything. But when I was growing up, my friend Nick Johnson, shout out Nick Johnson. I haven't talked to him in years, but he also was writing a book, and he came across this site. It was called Lulu. And he's like, you can bind your books on Lulu. Like you weren't public. You actually could publish them. You could buy them online. But he's like, if you write a book, you can like put them into, an actual like hardcover book, and they'll mail it to you and everything. So I was like, I need one of those, So I went on and I got my first book, and I just fell in love with it. And I was like, this is amazing. And so the first touch of like how I could, kind of like get people beyond just like my, because your family loves you, right? They're supposed to support you and stuff, right? But other people kind of the first glimpse I got of that was in middle school, was when I started bringing in these books, you know, and people were like, oh my God, like this kid is 12, you know, I guess it was like 11, 12 by the first time. They were like, oh my God, look at this. Like this kid's like actually got like a book. And, just got kind of curious about it. And so that was the first time I was like, no, people just actually beyond, me and my people like this stuff, and me and my friends, they would always, and my friends, none of them were writers, but we would like play games and stuff, and we would make up like different scenarios and things. And they would all be, they would all be like, I want to do this and this, but I don't know how to make it work. So they would just, say, Elias, put it in the story, like make a world with it or whatever. And then I would. But so that was kind of the first taste. And then, Swamp Dweller was where things kind of hit, sort of like the very wider public, before then, like college courses, and school writing and stuff. But no, it wasn't until Swamp Dweller that it was really like, man, this hits home for people, so many people. And it hits home for people too, by speaking to literal experiences that these people have had that are not, sort of like commonly validated, right? Like people who, have cryptid encounters, cryptid experiences, one of the things that everybody struggles with is like, nobody freaking believes me, or I'm alone. I feel like other people, don't even, understand kind of what's going on here. Although those people need to go talk to some indigenous folks, because like we know what's up. But anyway, like native people have known for a long time. Like you go to anywhere, and they'll be like, I saw a Sasquatch, and they'll be like, oh yeah, like they're around, So that was the first time I kind of, took like notice of how many people were connecting directly with those like very real experiences. Yeah.
The idea that, as you're writing these stories and you are realizing that there are people having encounters with Dogman or encounters with aliens or Wendigos or, Dogman or whatever they may be. I mean, how does that make you feel like as you're writing these, knowing that some of these encounters have literally, changed people's lives and maybe not for the better?
That's a good question. No, that is a good question. It's kind of like, I think in some ways, I've never actually put this together. I'm a fiction writer, and I've always been a fiction writer. Like I don't think I could ever write, something, not never, but like I wouldn't want to, write, nonfiction stuff. But because making stuff up, being creative is like one of the most fun parts. But it's kind of like handling any topic in this realm, which is that, we all use writers, right? Like we all use, experiences that have happened probably to someone somewhere or have some root in like ideas that we understand. Even when you're talking about, oh, somebody got like, the wizard like blew up somebody with a fireball, like that person died. Like we all know what death is, right? And so people write about different things. A lot of people write like war novels, for example, but what they do, and what I try to do, is like take my due diligence and do my like research, kind of know what I'm talking about and just tell it like truthfully, but, without trying to necessarily sensationalize it or without trying to downplay it either, and just kind of let people take from that what they will. Because the thing is too, as somebody who is like sensitive to different media sometimes, there's some stuff that just I don't want to engage with, because I'm like, this will upset me or, trigger me or whatever. So like, I'm just not going to watch this, and so people always kind of have that option, and I'm not doing it, to kind of like provoke, right? And I'm drawing from these real experiences and just kind of creating a fictional scenario, but I go out of my way, to make it as, serious and as true as possible. It's not a, you've listened to the stories. It's not a game, like this is not, they're fun stories, sure. Like they're fun, but these are not, they're not frivolous, I think you could say.
Even though you write fiction, how much of what you write is coming off the basis of true encounters that you've heard? or researched?
No, that is a good. That is a good. So I would say almost all of it, but in the sense that it's not that I'm directly like retelling people's encounters or like directly kind of lifting from people's encounters necessarily. Every so often, somebody will have mentioned, maybe like some aspect of a creature or some, like aspect of their experience, maybe a specific sound that they heard or a specific movement that the being made. And sometimes I'll lift that. But by and large, but even when I do that, I like to, take something that a bunch of people have said, and kind of crowdsource it. And if a lot of people are saying, I don't know, for example, Dogman, we'll just take Dogman because it's very common. Everybody knows what Dogman is. Dogmen are said to produce, when they growl or snarl, they produce a form of infrasound, which often people hear in their bodies. And that goes for like a lot of different animals, even, more like common animals that we all know. But I've heard that said so much, very specifically with people's encounters, that I was like, okay, so if we're going to have a Dogman in the story and it snarls, that has to happen, But all of it is taken from, real encounters. It's all taken from it in the sense that like it's all informing it very directly. I don't make up a ton of stuff or like throw in too much of my own stuff. I kind of maybe reinterpret it or frame it slightly. A lot of times there's contradictory data. People will say, oh, well, I saw this, or somebody will say, well, no, that's actually what this is. So sometimes I might kind of try to synthesize that and bring it together, but no, it's all drawn from, people's experiences. Again, not directly lifted or not like retelling it, but yeah, it's all informed by actual stuff by and large. Not all, but almost all.
We have 2 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Elias Ramos is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. EliasRamos.com is his website. Elias, why do you think people love to get scared? Because you're trying to, and please take this the proper way, you're trying to prey on their imagination. You're trying to prey on their fears in order to create a better story.
Sometimes a lot of the monsters, a lot of the cryptids in these stories have, maybe the experience is intense, but they're actually not designed to be. Yeah, it's actually interesting. And I'll try to make this quick. I know we got to go to break, but I have trouble defining the genre of these letters because I don't know if it's horror or fantasy or action, because it's kind of all of those things. Like I don't know how to classify it. But it was on Swamp Dweller, obviously a horror channel. But no, a lot of these stories are really not actually designed to be scary. They're designed to maybe be intense, but
suspenseful.
Yeah, suspenseful, yeah, or like or just intriguing. A lot of these stories, in fact, have no action or not no action, but a lot of the stories, it's not like, oh, we're gonna get killed. It's just like, no, there's something wrong here that we got to figure out. So it's not always about fear, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. There's some that are much more explicitly, kind of scary. But by and large, no, it's not. It's not specifically written to be horror.
But it's all in the way the people take it too.
It is. Yeah,
like,
it is.
For me, okay, I don't really care for horror movies. They don't do anything for me. But I do love suspense. I could tell you, let's go with an oldie but a goodie. Blair Witch Project. Nothing happened in that movie.
In my state.
Nothing happened in that movie until the end. Nothing happened.
Yes, that's true.
But it was a suspense. We're going to get more into that. A great creator of creepypasta writing, Elias Ramos, is our guest. We're going to get more into his information.
Yo, chat is wild right now. Chat is
and more when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we are clear. There we go.
Okay.
I'm loving you, man.
Chat is out of control. I love it. Oh, it's great. No, you have some good questions, Dave. Very insightful stuff.
Thank you. It's all about fun, man.
Yeah. My it's funny you mentioned Blair Witch Project. My it's probably like it's got to be less than like 2 hours. No, maybe like 2.5 hours from where I live is where that was filmed. And it's so funny because I told my friend, I was like, Kofi, we gotta go. Like, we gotta go to the wood. And he's like, what is that? And I was like, you don't know about the Blair Witch Project? And he's like, no, not really. And I was like, well, we gotta watch it then. And he's like, I don't want to watch a horror movie. I don't want to get scared. Why would I want to scare myself? I was like, it's not that scary. I mean, and like you said, you're like, nothing happens to the end. And I'm like, it's actually kind of slow. And he's like, then I don't want to be bored. And I was like, come on, man. I was like, dude, we cannot go. I was like, we can't go to Burkittsville and not watch like, that's the only reason we would go there, you know? And he's like, I don't want to get eaten by a witch. That's so dumb, dude. So I think I might just go there with my dog. I might just take Joe and we might just go alone.
Nice. As you should. As you should. Oh, man.
How long do these breaks last, by the way?
Pardon me?
How long do the breaks last?
We have about 3.5 minutes.
Oh, it's a 5 minute.
Yeah, 5 minutes at the bottom, 6 at the top.
5 minutes at 5. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go actually run to the bathroom really quick. And,
I'll pick you up. There you go. Dave cries when he watches the Golden Girls. Hey, that's B. Arthur, not myself. B. Arthur is the one who cries at the Golden Girls. Fun show tonight so far. This guy's got great energy. Great energy. I saw it. Ooh, Deidre has a crush. Deidre has a crush. Barry Littleton is amazing too. We got to get Barry back on the show. He is handsome, Dieter. Let's be honest. He's handsome. All right. Let's bring Elias back on. There you go.
Hello.
From a couple of our ladies in our chat room, I'm just supposed to tell you, you, sir, are handsome.
Why? Thank you. I know. I've seen chat. Chat is out of control.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Undead Jed. He grew up here. What's up, Undead Jed? Undead Jed knows. Maryland is. It's weird, man. We're such a weird state. We're so interesting. I'm in a Facebook group. It said the name of the group is Maryland is a cult, not a state.
Oh,
We're
nice.
very interesting. But that's fine.
We got about a minute or so to go.
We don't. Well, you mentioned Goatman. Goatman is probably the most famous Maryland cryptid. He does not have a full, Sam White Owl story devoted to him, but I do bring him up. I did get a question about him, so he is. I do mention him in one of the questions and answers. That's funny.
I'm so excited. Oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna keep the next hour and a half in control here because I'm just so.
No, you can. Well, you asked some great questions. You're great questions in the sense of like actually making you think. Like they're not like actually super like incisive, or like challenging necessarily, but they're just like, damn, this makes me think.
How you feel, man? It's about how you feel.
Well, and it's not just like, I got to, an immediate response for this. It's like, no, actually, come on.
I hear you, brother. All right, we got about 18 seconds. Just want to say thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up and hit subscribe tonight. Still waiting for our first super chatter of the night. And if you're shopping, go to our Spaced Out Radio store. You'll like our stuff. I promise you. Here we go, everybody. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is ready to go. My name is Dave Scott. Appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. So thank you very, very much. We're going to get back to our guest, Elias Ramos, here momentarily. But first, we want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Elias Ramos is here. His website, eliasramos.com. If you want to check him on out, learn all about his book that is coming on out, Letters from a Cryptid Hunter, Volume 1. It's about a gentleman named Sam White Owl. And if you want to hear the audio version, go to Swamp Dweller's YouTube channel. He has them all recorded there. And Elias has put them all together now. Elias, welcome back.
Let me also just mention really quick. So there will be an audiobook, and it will actually be me reading it. Rather than Swamp. I have a very different voice. I don't know. Do you know if Swamp has had any acting experience?
I have no idea if Swamp Dweller took acting.
I've never asked him.
Natural performer.
Yeah, no, I've never asked him actually. But no, well, I say that because I've been acting since I was, Jesus, since I was 6, dude. I've been acting since I was in first grade. But no, and I say that because I act it basically. And again, I'm I think one of the good things about the audiobook is that you always, not always, but it's good to have an audiobook read by the author, because the author knows that, they know their stuff, I just have a very different voice than Swamp Dweller though, I will say. But
I think it's great. How did you come up with Sam White Owl?
I will tell you this. Okay. So, and it was from Swamp Dweller. So for whatever reason, I'm listening to Swamp Dweller. I'm listening to a lot of these horror narrators. This is back in 2020. And somebody said he doesn't look that old. I'm 28. Anyways, so I'm listening to all these narrators, these horror narrators, and I'm hearing all these stories. People are like, I saw a Wendigo. We'll say it this once. Well, I saw a Skinwalker. And it's that's not what that is. You did not see what you saw that's not what that is. You have no idea what, this creature or that creature is, So I was I grew up with stories of these creatures, I was I gotta do this right. I gotta do that. I gotta tell this right, So I was okay, so who would know? I was who, because the thing about Swamp Dweller and a lot of the other narrators is, they read stories that, viewers submit, and a lot of them are true. And, the viewers actually had encounters. So I was okay, but, I gotta make, something we could do not just a one-off, right? And it would be a very one-off if it was just some random guy who had an encounter with a cryptid. So I was no, we need a kind of a character, basically, who we can follow and talk about many different cryptids and kind of set the record straight on a lot of these. And I was who would make, who would be able to do this? Well, somebody who studies cryptids, right? What if it was somebody who hunted cryptids, or not just hunted them, but kind of dealt with the things that go bump in the night? Because it would be cool, to have a story where, some dude is rumble in the jungle with Emela and Tuca, or battling a Wendigo, right? These are not creatures that, a lot of the time you can't just sit and watch these things through binoculars. These are very dangerous, So I was Okay, so that's number one. And I was like, well, we got to have an indigenous guy because like we know what's up, and there's like very poor indigenous representation in media in general. And I was like, so that too. And then I was like, and then if he was black, I was like, we don't have a ton of black, like cryptid hunters, sort of in this like horror space that aren't like stereotypes necessarily. And then it all just kind of came together because I was like, because then if we had the indigenous perspective too, when you hear a lot of these fictional stories, right? A lot of people's actual encounters, they come away with it having very different reactions, to the creatures themselves. But in a lot of stories that involve, cryptids, fictional stuff, they're always like the enemy, and they're not actually very like they're almost cartoonish. They're almost like tropes rather than actual beings.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't feel like real. They feel like, quote unquote monsters, right? They feel like movie monsters. They don't feel like actual beings, and they're always the enemy. It's always like we need to exterminate, this cryptid, that cryptid. We need to kill it. And it's like, no, like, hold on a second, some of them, yes, but like, this isn't about just going out and wiping out, all these creatures, right? Like we can coexist to some degree with these things. It's not morally right to just go out and wipe these things out. It's not feasible. It's not like, it doesn't make a ton of sense. It's difficult, it's dangerous. And, again, having this indigenous perspective of, there's this phrase, it's called mitakuye, which is a Lakota phrase that basically means all my relations. I talk about it in the book a little more, which is basically the idea of everything is connected. We are all part of like this much bigger, broader whole. And you don't cut out, and relations meaning like family, relatives, so you don't just cut out an entire part of your family, just because you don't like them, that you might hate them, but like you depend on them for your survival, and you need to respect them even if, you don't want to deal with them, right? So I was like, let's just do a story where, this guy's talking about kind of like managing cryptids, and like helping humanity, it's not about, like, yes, they're called the hunters, which I have an explanation for that too, but it's not about, going out and wiping out all these things. It's like, hey, let's try to balance here, let's try to coexist side by side,
I have to tell you a story. I don't even know if you know this or not, but in the number of times I have talked with Swamp Dweller about Sam White Owl and the Letters of a Cryptid Hunter, I have asked him point blank, is Sam White Owl real? And have you talked to Sam White Owl lately? And he was always very dodgy around the question. He never gave it up that this was a creation of you. He always let us believe that it was Sam White Owl was a real person.
That's very good. Well, and he well, I'll tell you what. So when I would send him, the stories, I never, like, it was from my email address, but I think I even wrote it into the stories. I had it in the stories. I had it said, as Sam, I'm hijacking my nephew's email address. I wrote myself into the stories, like, as Sam's nephew, right? I never named myself, but I wrote myself into these stories because I was like, what if something happens? I gotta like include myself. What if I need to take these stories in a different direction or something? I was like, I gotta be in there, right? So when I emailed him, he never said, he never called me Elias, even though it was coming from the Elias Ramos address. And I always wrote him as Sam. I never said anything about being Elias until the series was done. So it was wild. He never, gave it up for me either. So, well, I think that's, I take that as very high praise that both you and so many other people, have really, just like that, I was able to tell a story that was so, so real, right? That's kind of the, that's kind of the dream, to make a story, a world, a character, concepts that feel fully lived in. And I think, we were talking about, where we get this inspiration stuff from, I mean, again, like I'm not really making up a ton of this, I'm using all this information that other people have gathered, and stuff that I've been told, and just trying to create a real story.
It shows his professionalism too, that he wouldn't give it up,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
for respect not only of his listeners but his channel, and you being a writer on that too. Now tell us about Sam White Owl.
Ooh. So in the world of the stories, and this is another reason why it's kind of hard to classify it as fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, is because it's our world. The only difference is the cryptids, and that's not even different, because many of them are very real in our world. It's just that they're at the forefront of these stories. But Sam is, so his mom is Oklahoma Cherokee, his dad is African American, Black. So he is their son, and his mom is a member of the Hunters. The Hunters are a global organization whose job is to, again, not exterminate cryptids or wipe them out, basically just kind of deal with them and manage them and make sure that humans and cryptids and all other beings, can coexist in, as much harmony and peace as possible. Sometimes that's through studying, sometimes that's through, capturing and relocating, sometimes that's through just, killing, hunting. But Sam, takes these indigenous teachings, I mentioned Mitakuye Oyasin, and the idea of kind of being, again, we're not going to go out and we're, not going to hug them all and talk to them nicely and all be friends, right? But we're also not going to go out there, with machine guns and mow down everything that we don't like, right? So Sam is kind of trying to walk that line. He is in the writing of the stories. He's 48. Most of the stories take place when he's late 20s, 30s. They span a big range. But yeah, no, he's been on a ton of hunts. He's been on over 100 hunts, all across different continents. He's tangled with a lot of cryptids. He's a kind person. He's a compassionate person. He's an intelligent person. But he's a little detached. He's kind of shy. He's not a great people person. In the stories, you'll hear about his relationship with Heather, who was his partner, who he fell in love with. And in the bonus story, there's a bonus story, a new letter, brand new, never before seen. His trainee, May, who is kind of he trained me, his nephew, who is me. He trained me, but then also trained a new trainee, May. So you'll hear about his relationships with them. Sam White Owl, no, he's cool. He's cool. I like him a lot.
Now, this character of Sam White Owl, he is somebody who travels the world, going to, working for this secret company. Okay. Goodness. What's it called again?
What, the Hunters?
The Hunters, with a capital H.
Yes. That's how you know that you've listened to the stories, because I said it a bunch.
The Hunters with a capital H.
Yep.
Why? Okay, let's stop right there. Why was that important? The Hunters with a capital H. Why was it important to make it that way?
Well, it was important just to kind of show that it's a formal organization. I don't know. You would say, so for a department, like a police department, you could say it's the police, lowercase p. But if you're talking about a specific, department, right, you say capital P, PD, so I kind of wanted to make it that, with capital H, the official thing. But the reason I say capital H so much is because this was read aloud, right? So for the audience, they're not going to see it and know that it has a capital H, right? So I wanted to just kind of throw that in there so Swamp could read it, so that the audience could know, oh yeah, this is not just lowercase h, because Hunters is a word, right? So I wanted Swamp to basically read that aloud. So it got said quite a bit, but yeah, no, I wanted it to be, formal. It's not just Hunters, but the Hunters,
I love it. I love it. And it's those little nuances that make things a little bit more remembering of the story. At least for me, it is that way. And I'm sure for many others as well. Now, you have Sam White Owl running around all over the world looking for all of these different cryptids and creatures. Maybe tell our audience who isn't familiar with how the Hunters with a capital H works, how he became a part of this cryptid team, this conglomerate that goes hunting monsters.
Yeah, so the hunters. So well, here's another. You know what? Here's another reason. The way the capital H kind of originated. So in just like in our world, in Sam White Owl's, the Sam White Owl world, cryptids and humans have been existing, side by side forever. So there's always been, a need to like deal with these things. There's always been a need for, people to interact with them, to like maybe drive them off or like appease them or, avoid them, kind of like set up, often like religious beliefs around them, so over time, all across the world, there's all these independent, groups of people or, just individuals who it's like, okay, that's the person, when our village is like, having, their like our crops raided or like, when we have, merchants like going on the road and they're not coming back. And it's like, we know that they, we found their body and it was like, it was like partially eaten, clearly by like something very large and not, a wolf or a bear or whatever, right? You call that guy, right? Or you call those people. So it was often kind of, independently all around the world, this is what cropped up. And eventually it started in England, which was eventually, they were like, we need to make this like a formal organization. And it comes from like a hunter's lodge, which is like, a thing like, a hunting lodge or like, it's very formal, sort of like upper class aristocratic, English, like, oh yes, like come sir, like we'll go to the lodge, and do a hunt today, or whatever. So that's where it comes from. And the hunters in England, England's all over the world, colonizing and stuff. So as they go across the world, the hunters kind of start absorbing all these other, individuals, groups from different places into the organization. And Sam White Owl, his mom, she's Oklahoma Cherokee, and her and her like ancestors on that side of the family were always kind of the people who were dealing with cryptids. Whenever there was a Sasquatch or a dog band or there was problems, they came to them. So she got kind of scooped up by the hunters. She joined the organization, and then Sam was kind of like born into it. So that's how he kind of like joined up. He was born into it, but it doesn't always happen like that. A lot of people get recruited.
How does one become recruited into the hunter?
I knew somebody was going to ask that question.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you created the hunter licenses,
oh yeah,
I would totally buy one. I would totally buy one. Just saying.
You know what? I'll write that down. That would actually be a lit piece of merchandise. Little hunter swag. But no, so that's a good question. But I knew somebody was going to ask that. I knew that somebody was going to be like, like how to sign me up. I want to join. I was like, don't do it. So there is actually in the hunters. So the hunters, capital H, is the organization. There's a lot of branches of it who all do different things. So Sam is like, a combat hunter or a field hunter, the guys who go out in the wilderness or whatever, go study cryptids or, like eliminate them or whatever. There are like the surgeons who start with the capital S. They're not actually all surgeons, but again, it kind of comes from those old, English times when that's what they did, but they're like the chemists and the researchers, kind of the scientists, the biologists. So there is a wing of the hunters called the scouts with a capital S, and their job is to like go out, and find people who may or may not be, good candidates for the organization. And often it's people who had encounters, but often it's just people who are like really skilled at what they do. People who are known for being like very good hunters, very good trackers, often very good like snipers, or gunmen, or very good biologists, very talented like management people. So the scouts are the ones who go out and try to find people. But so that's why I said in one of my first, I think the first letter, somebody was like, "How do I become a hunter?" And I immediately I was like, I knew they were going to say that. And I said, "We will find you." I was like, if we want you, we will find you. But no, it's not. I mean, it's not glamorous, man. It's not glamorous, and it takes a lot, to be a field hunter, right? Like anybody can kind of do the bureaucracy, the paperwork, right? But nobody wants to do that. Everybody's like, I want to go, out and fight the Wendigo, or like, I want to go, capture a Thunderbird. It's like, don't do that. You're not ready. Like you might think you're ready, but you're probably not, yeah, it's a rough job.
As you develop these creatures, we know the Sasquatch, we know the Dogman, we know the Wendigo, the Skinwalker,
yeah,
the aliens, the UFOs, the ghosts. You have come up with a number of different creatures that are in the stories, Letters to a Cryptid Hunter. So I'm curious how you came up with them and maybe give a few examples.
Wait a minute. Well, do we have to take a break in like 2 minutes or whatever?
3 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. All right. So just making sure. So no, they're all real. They're all
around here.
They're all real. I have not made up anything. By and large, I mean, these are all, either taken almost directly or very directly inspired from actual real life cryptids from all over the world. And one of the reasons I wanted to have an indigenous protagonist, but B, kind of a global story, is because I love to travel, I love different cultures, and I wanted to tell stories about cryptids that, like people don't know about, like people know what a Dogman is, a Sasquatch, a Wendigo, but nobody knows, what like a Wet'suga is, or like a Kamasots is, or nobody knows about even like some kind of popular stuff like the Bunyip, which is from Australia. So some creatures, some examples. But the Bunyip, that's probably Australia's most famous cryptid. Nobody really knows what it is. If you go and look it up, it's got like a zillion different representations. In the Letters from a Cryptid Hunter, it's kind of like a big otter, dog, cat kind of thing. It's an aquatic predator. It's got a booming roar and an extendable neck. But then like the Emelontuka, I've said that a couple times. It's one of my favorites. It's a giant. They call it the elephant killer. That's what its name means. Elephant killer. It lives in Central Africa in the rainforests. It's kind of like a fusion of a rhino and a triceratops. That letter is kind of wild. What else? So then there's stuff that are like somewhat known, but are kind of like less popular. So like the Thunderbird, which is in a lot of indigenous mythologies, especially in the Great Lakes and the plains. They are enormous, essentially in the same way they're based off of teratorns, which were enormous vulture-like relatives that used to live out west. One of the largest birds ever, Argentavis, was a teratorn. So like taking stuff like that and then combining it with the mythology. So Thunderbirds, they don't, shoot lightning from their eyes or, throw it from their wings, but they fly around in storms, like completely without fear. Lightning seems to follow them. So, just kind of taking those myth aspects, but also taking aspects of very real, very biological, zoologically plausible, like animals, and creatures. Even, stuff like vampires. They're just kind of altered humans. They're in the kind of the second season. But yeah, I try to make them, as like plausible as possible. Maybe one reason why so many people think it's real,
Well, I mean, and that's the whole purpose, is to try and bring some of these creatures to light. We're used to the ones here in North America, but we may be not used to ones in Europe or Australia or Asia.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yep. And one of my favorite is the question and answer section. I always have a section about cryptids from around the world. We have viewers asking questions from Scandinavia, India, Philippines, so what's there? Blah, blah, blah.
All right. Elias Ramos is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We have him for another hour here. I love this guy. I love his story. I need to get a book out of him. Of course, I'm going to pay for it. That's what I do. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Elias, we got about 5.5 minutes. I'm just going to put you in the green room and I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Thank you. All right, I'm back. And all right, got you here, buddy.
All right.
Yeah, just tell me how much and I'll send you the money.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I will. Well, now the illustrations are coming. My artist is phenomenal. What is her? Hold on, wait. I need to find her link because Danielle is the best. It will be, yes, it will be illustrated. So
awesome. Awesome.
She is,
that would make a great Christmas present.
I will show. I wanted to get it out before the holidays. I will show you. Damn, I can't get her. I can't find her.
That's okay.
I'll find it later.
We got 30 seconds before we launch here. Thank you to Mel WD40, Jennifer Richardson, Elizalde, and Blue Cruz for the wonderful super chats tonight. Also, thank you to Sweet Home Oregon for becoming a member on our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate your love. We're going to get some audience questions in this next hour. Keep them focused on the story. If you don't mind, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We'd love it if you did. And here we go. We're rocking it into hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We really appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We'll get to our guest, Elias Ramos, here momentarily. But first, we want to say hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Talar. Talar is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam says the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's bring in our guest. He is a creepypasta writer. He's got his first book coming out called Letters from a Cryptid Hunter, Volume 1. Sam White Owl's Letters from a Cryptid Hunter. I'm telling you, if you've never heard these stories, this is one you're going to want to add to your library. I promise you that. And I am addicted to these stories. EliasRamos.com is his website. Elias, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Glad to be back.
All right, my man. Sam White Owl has fallen in love. He's found heartbreak and pain from people being lost to these cryptids. I mean, you have to try and make it as realistic as possible with this. I mean, man, you kill off a lot of people.
I do. I do. It's not easy. It's actually kind of like Sam White Owl, except it's kind of medieval. There's a series. It's called The Witcher. It got a Netflix series, which is abysmal. That Netflix series is awful. Play the games or read the books, but the games are phenomenal. And there's this line. One of the characters, Witchers are essentially kind of like, that world's version of like Cryptid Hunters. They're like specially trained. They go to like schools in order specifically to like hunt and kill monsters. And there's one line, I think it's the character Letho, and he says, "A Witcher never dies in their bed." The idea being that like this job is so dangerous, and it's like it's all we do, that like we are going to get killed. Like no, we're not going to live, and die of old age peacefully, in our sleep. We're going to get killed. And it's not quite that bad in Sam White Owl. But yeah, no, people bite the dust. These are incredibly dangerous creatures, and no, it's not safe. It's a lot like it's. I don't want to say it's like a war, because it's really not. But if you go on a hunt and I mean, even if you're not trying to, kill the cryptid, even if you're just maybe trying to capture it or observe it, this is what happens with, in real life often with wild animals, obviously it's much rarer in real life because you're usually not going out trying to fight a lion or something, but you might be going out, trying to necessarily, if it's a problem lion, like if it's, killing a lot of people or if it's killed a lot of livestock, a lot of times they get killed, unfortunately. And yeah, it's brutal. People die. And these are cryptids, a lot of these, well, not a lot, but some of the cryptids are stuff like the Wendigo or the Wet'suge, the tall deer. Their entire existence is predicated upon, mass, indiscriminate violence and indiscriminate death. So these are creatures that, it's rare, but they are like that. There are some like that. And when it is, people die. These are dangerous critters. Even the ones that are, more, sort of intelligent, that can be communicated with, stuff like that. It's not a safe job. I mean, you could be one of the guys at the desk, right? Doing all the behind the scenes, paperwork and arranging, making calls to law enforcement or whatever. But no, I mean, people who want to go out in the field, it's vicious.
I want to just change subjects here for a
Sure.
if you don't mind, because you have given yourself a crash course on cryptid creatures, from all over the world. Out of all the ones that you have studied, which one do you think, or maybe ones do you think, are real and are out there somewhere that is really, really scary?
It's really, really scary. Damn, that's a good question. Oh, I don't know. That's a very good question. There are some, and I don't want to, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but we'll just say walkers are, what I'm talking about. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you guys are in the cryptid, you'll know what I'm referring to. Are very scary, and we can leave it at that. Well, actually, just elaborate on it slightly. They are, and this comes up in the stories. They are almost exclusively a threat and a danger in and around the Navajo Nation. It's also kind of a broader region called Dineta, off in the Four Corners in the Southwest. If you're away from there, you're safe, but they are dangerous, and that is very scary. I do not like people mimicking voices or not being able to trust animals that move strangely. But we will leave it there because we don't talk about these things, especially not at night. But they are in the stories. But other things that are scary, Sasquatch, honestly, can be very scary. There's a lot of absolute just horror stories out there. The little people, actually, the little people maybe, and this is another thing, is a little more touchy, but the little people are, for those people who don't know, they are somewhat like Sasquatch in that, and there's, stories about different sorts of groups of them, but I'm talking about the North American ones. They live all over the continent, the North American continent. Some of them even go down to Mexico and Central America. But they're humans, but they're a lot like humans, but they're just smaller, and are very dangerous. If you offend them, if you go into certain areas that they don't want you in, they'll warn you, but they will kill you very quickly. And it's what? A lot of times they'll just shoot you with arrows or spears. Oftentimes that have some sort of, power or something that will literally just kill you straight up. That is very scary. But it's kind of with a lot of this stuff, it's just be smart, don't go into areas where people don't tell you to go, don't do dumb stuff, don't go around, disrespecting, certain areas, or secret sites, that kind of thing. But yeah, no, those are some scary ones. in other locations, I'm trying to think about other stuff in other places. There are some very creepy human-ish cryptids from Eastern Europe. A lot of shape-shifting things that, again, I can't say, you know, are necessarily like 100% real. Oh, by the way, I'm sticking mainly to things that are like, you know, quote unquote real, right? You know, because I think there's some truth to like pretty much all of these, but I don't, you know, not exactly necessarily like the stories. Some stuff in Eastern Europe, yeah, just shape-shifting stuff that a lot of mimicry goes on there. In Japan, I'll tell you what, Japan has some very odd, very strange, very disturbing creatures. There is the Yuki Onna, the snow woman. She lives in like high mountains, and again, like obviously snowy regions, and will often seduce men or lure them like into the snow and just like get them lost in the blizzards or have them freeze to death. And that must just be absolutely miserable. Really weird stuff. Some of which is not super scary. Like the kappa are from Japan. They're kind of like little like water gremlin dudes. But yeah, no, there's definitely some scary stuff out there. Also, stuff like the Emelontuka, I mentioned before, kind of that rhino-ish reptile, sort of triceratops-ish or ceratopsian. That's very scary. I would not want to have a giant, you know, 7+ foot tall animal that regularly kills elephants, like charging me. That would be very scary. The aswang. By the way, let me mention, a lot of these cryptids, if you go on eliasramos.com and you sign up for the mailing list, you will get a special pamphlet, never before seen, that's got little sketches and I made little like doodles and little blurbs on a lot of these ones. And the aswang is on there. The aswang is sort of like a Filipino, some people kind of call it a vampire. It's not really a vampire. It does suck blood, but that's about the only similarity. It's they're very skinny, they're very long. A lot of these sort of like long, skinny humanoids are very scary. It's very stealthy, and it has an extendable tongue that, weirdly enough, it will actually like eat fetuses. Like it's very fond of eating fetuses out of like pregnant women with its like massive tongue, which is absolutely horrific. But it's so gnarly. They're and they're very tall, they're very skinny, and they're fast. They're incredibly fast. They're incredibly stealthy. That is very freaky. Last one. Everybody knows La Llorona, which is she's the weeping woman of basically from like everywhere from like Mexico south. She's sort of the mourning like the lady in white kind of ghost that is all over the world. She's like the Latin American version. She cries for her children who were drowned, and in many myths, many of the tales, if you come across her, she may drown you. There's another creature called the Siwanaba, lives in Mexico, is so bizarre. A horse woman who looks maybe vaguely like, a woman from a distance, but mimics voices and mimics like a female voice. And when you approach her, she will reveal that she has either a horse's face or like is like half horse and will eat you, which is absolutely horrific. If I heard a woman on the side of the road, crying for help, asking me, to like come over, and I went over and, she had her head down and she revealed that she was like a horse. No way, a horse, no way. Absolutely horrific. So there you go. Those are some of the scariest ones.
How many of these do you believe in? How many do you believe are really out there of all of these, whether it's in Japan or whether it's in Bulgaria or Brazil or wherever it may be?
That's, and it's tough because like obviously there's so many, right? So like I can't, off the top of my head be like that. But what I would say is, okay, so like the definitely real ones, I would say almost certainly are like Bigfoot, little people. There is some truth to Thunderbirds. Well, and then here's another thing too, is stuff like Thunderbirds. And a lot of these cryptids, I think there is, kind of I know this is kind of like a wishy-washy, you know, not super definite answer, but I think there's truth to all of this stuff. There's some level of truth, you know, to all of it. Whether it's all true, I don't know, right? And I think there are very few creatures that are exactly as they're shown or, you know, portrayed or, you know, spoken of in myths and legends, in stories, in teachings. And another thing too is so many teachings differ, you know, the same cryptid in one region, maybe, you know, pretty damn different from what it is in another region, you know, so, like Sasquatches are one, and obviously they have different, you know, like groups, different troops and different like subspecies and stuff. But, you know, in your neck of the woods, British Columbia, even within that small range, a lot of people are like, yeah, he's very peaceful. He's like chill, just like leave him alone. But then a lot of people are like, dude, if you look them in the eye, they will kill you. You know, like in a very, you know, small region. So when you hear stuff like that, it's like, okay, well, if I believe X version, what if it's actually Y? So the reason I say that is because, you know, I think very few things are true to the letter, as it were, of the myths, the legends, but, you know, the stories. But I think there's some truth to all of them. There's something there. Again, I cannot say how valid or not it is. But that's kind of what I try to get at with the stories, you know, is, again, like, you know, the Thunderbird example. No, it doesn't, you know, fling lightning or, you know, like spit or, you know, have like lightning vision, but it, you know, flies around in storms. So maybe it does have, you know, some sort of thunder aspect. But yeah, so as for the ones I definitely think are real, I think the Aswang could be real. I don't know if it has an extendable tongue and eats fetuses, but like, I think there could be something out there that, you know, moves very fast and kills people at night. Yeah, I think those are some of the big ones. Dogman. I think Dogman is, again, I don't know if it's exactly like all the stories say, but I think there's something there's something to the like Wolfman, Dogman idea. Crawlers could be a thing. Crawler. Well, actually, do you know, what would you call? Do you know crawlers? Like, do you know that?
The night crawlers?
Not the Fresno night crawlers. I'm talking. Do you know like the rake? The rake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so in San Juan, they're basically these. They're like the long white things. I don't know how to say. They're like they're very tall, very long, very skinny, like white creatures that
extremely lanky arms and legs with no muscle tone.
Yeah, and they have like, you know, large eyes and maybe, you know, like no noses, and they crawl around at night. You know, pale crawlers. Somebody said pale crawlers in the
Pale
chat.
crawlers, that's right.
Yes, those things. I don't know. Again, I don't know like how 100% real they are, but they could, like, those are reported all over the place. So like there's totally something there. Had a rake sighting. Yeah, like, you know, so in more recent times they call it the rake. But yeah, I mean, there's something behind all of these. Again, whether it's exactly like it's said, I cannot tell you. But no, definitely. So hardcore, yes. Sasquatches, little people, maybe the Aswang. And I would say Wolfman, or Dogman. Wolfman. Yeah. I'm sorry, not werewolves are not werewolves, not, you know, shifting forms between human and wolf, but like Dogman, you know, the thing that's like, you know, half, which is letter number 3 is in San Juan.
I always look at it like I've been fortunate or unfortunate, depending how you think.
I know.
I have had encounters with Sasquatch. I have had encounters, or one encounter, with either a skinwalker or a Wendigo.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious.
That was a couple months ago, where my research partner, Tim, and I were all of a sudden hearing at our research spot in deep woods of the forest, we're all of a sudden hearing a woman's voice saying, "Help me.
No.
Here. Can you help me?" And where we go, there it's one way in and one way out. We would see anybody who came in, and then the voice changed from that woman to a man saying, "Help us. We're over here. Can you help us?" And it was all monotone. Like there was no emotion in the voice. There was no screaming or, you hear these AI generated videos where these creatures are like screaming, "Help me!"
Right.
It wasn't anything like that. It was literally like the most monotone thing. "Help me.
I heard who wait, okay, Les Stroud? Yeah, obviously, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He had it was a radio show. It was called like Bigfoot Chronicles or something. And it wasn't him who actually did the show. I think he just kind of like sponsored it. But there was a guy who did the show, and he had a woman on the show that said that she it sounded very much like what you said. It sounded almost exactly like what you just imitated. She said it was in her backyard, and she said it was a Sasquatch Chronicles. Yes, that's the one. And she had apparently a Sasquatch in her backyard, and I think multiple that were doing that exact same thing. And she actually on the show she mimicked it herself, and it sounded very similar to what you just said.
It was it was creepy because at one point she said, "Help me. I love you."
What?
Help me. Yeah, that's how we knew that we weren't dealing with a human.
Right.
2 reasons: the monotone voice, and it was moving through the forest. So like if we were sitting up at high noon, this creature or whatever it was at like 100 yards away at like 4 o'clock. And then it moved up to 3 o'clock. And then eventually it moved over to 11 o'clock.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like it was totally surrounding us.
So
and it was all, "Help me. I'm over here."
And you heard it?
Oh yeah.
Like, was it large?
The unfortunate part about it is our microphones didn't pick it up.
Okay.
But we could hear it with our ears, but it was tough to hear with the ears.
Was it large?
We never saw it.
Well, you heard it moving, but was it like, did it sound large, I guess? Although they say Sasquatch, a lot of times are so quiet.
The Sasquatch encounters we have had there, it's very large.
Oh, and you can hear it.
They're very large, and they've come very close to us.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the area where I'm in, it's very claustrophobic because you're surrounded by a wall of trees. And they will move right into that brush area or just behind it. Probably the thing that's freaked me out the most with the Sasquatch was I had a First Nations friend of mine drumming and singing. And she sits down, and out of all the nights that we were not recording, she sits down after drumming and singing and puts the drum on. And I don't understand the language.
What nation or tribe?
She's Cree.
Okay.
They're
big. Yeah. Okay.
And so all of a sudden she sits down, and I said, "That song really felt like it was a welcoming song." And she goes, "It was." And I was like, "Oh," I said, "that was beautiful." And we sat there and we just kind of talked about the song. And all of a sudden, about 35 yards from us, just behind this wall of trees and brush, we heard the loudest tree knocks I have ever heard. Like we're talking Louisville slugger bat on a full Barry Bonds swing on a tree twice.
Interesting.
Wham.
Twice.
Wham. Yeah.
Huh.
And it was like, you got to be kidding me right now. Like it was terrifying. And but we knew, as terrifying as it was, we knew that it was literally about like a thank you for the song.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there was nothing that felt nefarious about it. It was like, I'm right here listening. I'm going to respond to you. And of course, because we're not used to it, That's where it got scary.
Right.
When we return on Spaced Out Radio, we're going to take some audience questions with Elias Ramos next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, my man, we're clear. You having fun?
No, this is so funny. Yeah, no, this is crazy. That's so interesting. My well, and you know, a lot of First Nations, Indigenous, you know, have you know, greeting songs. Not obviously for other people and visitors and stuff, but also, you know, just songs. It's like, okay, I'm coming through the woods. You know, just like I'm here. You know, I'm coming through. You know, just like I'm like, I don't want to bother you. I'm just like passing by, you know, and you know, just as like a form of respect, you know, and so it's so interesting. Well, and it doesn't surprise me.
The funny part about that, the week after that incident, I still laugh at this. The week after that incident, Tim and I are out there, and once again, we have the camera off, and right in that exact same area where the tree knock happened, we start hearing something big move through the trees. So in our area, because we can't see it, we have, just so you know, we have a lot of like 1,500 pound moose.
Okay.
We have grizzly bears, we have black bears, we have wild horses.
Oh,
we
wow.
have packs, mountain lions, like everything in that area. A lot of shit that will kill you, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and it still cracks me up, we hear this creature move in, and it starts ripping ass. Right there. And it's like, it went on for about 15 seconds. Like,
oh my God.
just like that. And I'm looking at Tim and I'm like, and I literally said, "Are you serious right now? Like, is this what's going on?" And
That's so funny.
And it was so hilarious. I mean, pun intended, the shitty part about it was we had the camera off when that was happening.
It's the worst time. Yeah.
And it stunned us so much that we forgot to turn the camera on. Well, we go back to the week after that, and we go into that area where we thought the farting was happening.
Uh-huh.
And what we noticed was a strange clump of feces.
Oh.
And we're with people who are outdoors people. Okay, we know what bear looks like, bear scat looks like. And there is a difference between black bear and grizzly bear.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay. We know what horse scat looks like. We know what moose scat looks like, deer scat, wolf scat.
Yeah, those all look very different. Yeah.
Mountain lion scat. This looked nothing like any of those.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so we actually have some in a freezer. I'm just waiting to find the right scientist.
Please.
Send it. Yeah, we took some home.
I want to know. That is wild.
Now it could be something natural. I don't think it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, and one of the reasons the Sasquatch.
Here's the other weird part about it. Those animals that are there, they just poop anywhere.
Right.
They poop anywhere. But where this was strange was that it actually backed its ass up into a bunch of trees. So a bunch of like small shrubs and bushes. Okay. And that's where it dropped. And animals just don't do that. They don't back their butts into a tree area. I mean, if they're walking along, they'll just drop it right there. You know?
True.
So it was strange.
Yes and no, because so a lot of animals, and it really depends. A lot of times it's, territorial stuff. A lot of it, it's like, I'm sure you know dogs. Everybody's like, there's the stereotype of like the dog peeing on the fire hydrant. But there's a reason for that, which is that a fire hydrant, typically, it's on the sidewalk, it's big, it's obvious, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's tall. So for all the other dogs coming along, they're like, oh, that's the spot, right?
Hold that thought. We got to come back to the show here in like 5 seconds. Hold on, everybody.
I'll get some water. Yeah.
We're at the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We are having a great time tonight with Elias Ramos hanging on out with us, talking about legends, cryptids, storytelling, and much more. His website, eliasramos.com, where you can find Sam White Owl's Letters from a Cryptid Hunter, Volume 1, which is on pre-sale right now. It's going to be a great one. I highly recommend it. I don't recommend a lot of books. This one I do. Okay? This one I do. It's absolutely amazing. Elias, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Can I just say something really fast?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, for people on YouTube, they heard this story about Dave was talking about a Sasquatch. Or potentially a Sasquatch, dropping a massive turd in the wilderness, and he heard it for like 15 seconds. He said you heard a very long flatulence, a very long bout of flatulence. I'll tell you really fast. This is very quick. And this is something I talk about with Sasquatch. So if humans, we're what's called plantigrade, which is our whole foot sits on the ground, and this is the kind of stuff that goes into Sam White Owl too. We walk with our heel on the ground. Most animals are what are called digitigrade. They walk on their toes, like a hoof, a horse hoof or a deer hoof. It's a toe. Just like, even a dog's. Yeah, no, even dogs kind of have like toes like that. Elephants are digitigrade. If you look at an elephant foot, it's kind of just like a big pillar.
Yes.
But inside there, the elephants have toes. And you can see the toes on the front of the foot. They sit like this. And so all the stuff under there, like in the foot, that's all fat. It's all cushioning, basically. So people are like, oh, elephants, they must, thump across the ground. They must be so. They're not. They're actually very, very quiet because that fat is it's a cushion. And they move pretty slow. And their gait is so even. Elephants, they literally cannot physically run. They can only walk, speed walk. But they're so big, it kind of doesn't matter. But they're very quiet. And so when we were in Namibia, we actually had elephants come through our camp in the dead of night in Etosha National Park. They walked through, and I don't know exactly how many there were. It was a small herd, and it was, a female-led herd, and there were a couple, children, young elephants, and they crossed almost directly through our camp. And I did not hear them. Or I didn't know exactly what it was. I heard movement outside. And I was like, there's something out there. But, we're in the middle of the wilderness in Namibia. So I was like, I don't know what that is. And I thought about sticking my head out and looking. And then I heard farting. I was like, what? It was fairly loud farting and coming from high up, much too high up to be basically anything else. I was like, something is out there. And it was elephants. It was like,
no way.
We could have seen, I think there were maybe 3 or 4 of them that we could actually see because the moon was small, there wasn't much light, and it was wild. I was like, look at this. I was like, this is unreal. It was so incredible. They're such cool animals. Also, tartar saucer, what is up. The rock hyrax. Well, and not just the rock hyrax, the hyrax, but the Dasi. Is what it's called. I had a toy See, it goes all the way back. I had a toy Dasi when I was a kid. They look like little groundhogs. They're the closest living relatives to elephants. Anyways, just No, I'm kind of nerding out about animals here.
No,
It's all goes into the Sam White Owl stuff, you know?
Another question I have for you. What is your favorite cryptid to write about?
Ooh, that's a good question. To write about or just kind of in general?
Both.
Thunderbirds are so amazing. They are, I mean, you know, they're sacred animals, and like, you know, in indigenous cultures, you know, all animals are kind of like sacred in their own way, and or have, you know, some sort of like a lot of value. But thunderbirds in particular are just these mighty, massive birds. And ever since I was a kid, I've always loved. So, you know, we talk about dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs, but my favorite's always been the pterosaurs. They're not dinosaurs, but, you know, what we do call pterodactyls, you know, the big flying ones. I love those so much. And thunderbirds, I don't know, they channel that same vibe. They're enormous. And lightning, man, lightning is just like, it's such a powerful element. And to think about, you know, a creature that, you know, is like connected to that element in particular is just amazing. And they're just mighty. They're like eagles. They kind of have like the same eagle level, but like massive. Very cool. Oh yes, and Rip Jane Goodall, who, by the way, I actually worked with her briefly with her grandson. I got to meet her. She was like, "You should go to Tanzania and meet with my grandson and go work for him at Pugu Hills." And I did, but then COVID made me come home. It was very unfortunate. But no, she was the best. She was awesome. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm like
she also believed that Sasquatch was real.
Yep. She knew. And I'm like, dude, if she like, if you know, if anybody should know, it's her, right? You know? Yeah, no, Jane Goodall, she's just such a wonderful human being. She was, it's funny. I met her with my grandma, and she was basically my grandma. she was like my other grandma. She held my hand and was just so nice. She let me like hold one of her toys, one of her toy animals. It was actually a little toy chimp. It was great. She was awesome. She was so cool. Yeah, I loved her.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Just
yeah. Everybody's in the chat talking about elephants, and yeah. Well, and the reason they can hear the sound through the ground, we were talking about infrasound with dogmen. Elephants communicate through infrasound, and because of those cushions in their feet, they absorb all the vibrations of the infrasound. They send it for miles throughout the earth to talk to each other, and you'll often see them standing on 3 legs because they can't really stand on 2, you know, because they're just too big. And they stand on 3 legs so they can kind of like source the sound better with, like, you know, the 3 that are on the ground. They're so cool, dude. Elephants are amazing. They can also sense earthquakes like that. They're always they see earthquakes coming and are always like on the move before it happens because of that. Anyways, I'm sorry.
Oh, keep going, man.
Well, no, because I just love animals, and you know, this is all kind of stuff that goes into, you know, the Sam White Owl stories. It's like, how would these creatures actually, you know, again, like I think some of them are real, right? Yes, triangulation. But it's like how you know, how do animals actually live, and how would, you know, X, Y, Z cryptid actually, you know, behave like that, you know? So
if you could meet one cryptid face to face, what would you like to experience?
Oh, experience. I would kind of just like, well, we did mention thunderbirds. I would love to just meet a thunderbird and have it like look at me and just kind of be in this presence, you know, and maybe not even just other thunderbirds, you know, something very large, you know. The Makata comes up in Sam White Owl. It's a giant. It's like a giant. It's not a cetacean, so it's not a whale or a dolphin, but it's huge. It's a very large, you know, aquatic cryptid, and to just kind of have one of these really huge. Maybe, you know, again, it kind of goes back to the dinosaurs, right? You know, just something about massive creatures. Just kind of like looking at me and just have like an eye-to-eye experience, you know, just like acknowledging each other, appreciating each other, and just kind of like, you know, just having a moment of connection, but then, you know, potentially, you know, and then just leaving it there. Because otherwise, you know, I wouldn't want to intrude on them too much, you know? If one was very nice, you know, if I could hang out and talk with like a kitsune are the fox folk you've probably heard of, you know, in Japan, China, Korea, Vietnam. You know, in China they're called the hulijing. In China, Japan. I'm sorry. In China they're called the hulijing. In Japan they're the kitsune. In Korea they're the kumiho. They shapeshift. They take the form of humans, but also of foxes. You may have heard of like the nine-tailed fox or the fox with multiple tails. These are the fox folk in Sam White Owl. And I would love to just have a conversation with one of them, you know, and just, you know, like, what were things like, you know, back in the old days? Like, did you teach humans to write, you know, or like, how do you, you know, produce fire from your hands, that kind of stuff, you know, and just talk with them, you know, what can you teach me? You know, what do you think of humans? Like, what could you teach us? You know, like, are we being good or are we really stupid? You know, that kind of stuff.
I would love for my encounter to be with a Sasquatch.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have had one.
Well, I know that,
but not I
want a close encounter, like less than 30 feet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I want to just be able to look at it, and I have this romantic picture in my head that if I'm blessed to have that happen, I just really want to have the opportunity just to say thank you, and just in amazement and in awe at its beauty, at its strength, and everything, and just show it love. Now, I realize that may sound a little hipsterish or whatever.
No, it was my thing too.
But I have this romantic idea in my head, and I've had it since before I moved up here, that I just want to have that close encounter where I could just stare at it. I don't even need to move. And the problem is, I don't know if I would have the fortitude to do it.
I know. Yes, I get you. Well, and you're like, I know that sounds a little hipster, but no, it doesn't, because that was basically what I was saying with the, with the Thunderbird, just kind of like showing the appreciation, the respect, the love, the acknowledgement of like, interrelatedness, but also just like, you're there, I'm here, but we can be like chill together, but yeah, no, I don't know if I would. Although I gotta say, I think in these situations, I think I would just freeze. There's a fight, flight, response. Everybody, there's multiple different, everybody says fight or flight response. There's actually like 4. It's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn meaning basically try to like appease, or try to like placate the threat. But freeze, I think I would just freeze, honestly. And, it's hard to say, I would do that because it hasn't happened. But no, I feel like I would just freeze, I'd be too scared to even move, I think, But who knows? I mean, you don't know until it happens to you.
No, that's very true.
Well, and actually, I will say, I have had multiple encounters with dangerous animals, and I've actually have not frozen on any of them. I've gotten moving, when it's been appropriate. So yeah, maybe I wouldn't freeze. I don't know.
I know I would. If I know me as well as I know me, I would totally freeze. But I just want that close encounter. And that's the energy that I'm putting out. I think eventually, I don't think it'll happen this year, but maybe in the next year or two, it may happen at that spot.
Yeah. I think that would be nice. Although, but the thing is too, with a lot of this stuff, you got to be careful, man. You just have to be careful, like it's just like, well, and a lot of times it's not necessarily, don't go out there, but it's also like, you have to be careful, kind of like be careful what you wish for kind of thing, but I hear you, and again, and I think kind of like your energy, your vibe, I think most, especially something like a Sasquatch, which, doesn't have the exact sort of level of like, reactivity necessarily as like a bear or a wolf. A Sasquatch would often be able to tell, okay, this guy is not trying to do anything stupid, you know? And a Sasquatch also, like a lot of animals, you know, they're much more likely to scare you off than they are to actually like attack you, you know? But yeah, you just gotta be careful, you know? But it is a very wholesome thought. And I think, yeah, I definitely think it could happen.
All right, let's get to some audience questions here. Let's start off with Philip Blair. He's over in the UK. Can Sam White Owl remember any past lives?
Sam? No, well, no. But, you know, like a lot of indigenous people, you know, family is such a big thing. And that's been something in my life personally that, you know, I wish I have had a better connection to. You know, my native side is from Puerto Rico. That's the Taino. I'm actually wearing the shirt. The Taino people from Puerto Rico, and I wasn't able to get to know my family a ton from the island. So I don't know. I wish, you know, I could have had that connection, but Sam does, and so he doesn't remember any past lives, but he is very close to like his ancestors. He has a lot of items passed down by them that he brings with him on hunts. But mainly one of the things is kind of like a little ring of beads. But so no, he doesn't remember past lives, but he is connected to other people who lived in the past.
All right, let's move on to another one here as we continue on with our audience questions. Jules is asking, how long does it take you to write an average length story?
Well, I mean, I'm writing books. I'm writing a book, but if you're talking like an average Sam White Owl letter, I don't know, a couple days. But in terms of hours, I mean, it's kind of hard to judge. But those initial ones, those initial first Sam White Owl letters, I mean, I was cranking those out like multiple a month. I think the first like 5 took place in like a month and a half. So I was moving. So it could have been, it was probably like a matter of weeks, like less than a week per story. But hours, I don't know, I can't really say. Maybe like, I don't know, 7, 8. Yeah, and the letters are about an hour long a piece. They were shorter, but then they lengthened as I elaborated more, added more detail and stuff. Yeah.
All right, let's go over to Paramarv here. He is asking, what does Sam White Owl think about black-eyed kids, cryptids, demons, or other? Let's start with black-eyed kids.
That is so funny. So black-eyed kids and demons, I actually answer. So if you have listened to the original Swamp Dweller videos, I opened up pretty much every one with question and answer sections, Q&A from the audience. And the audience would ask, put questions in the comments, and I would have Sam answer them. And black-eyed kids and demons are actually 2 of them. So black-eyed kids, he does not know much about them. He didn't even know what they were. They are, usually thought to be a form of alien. Aliens are not really Sam's thing, but he thinks that they could be out there. He just doesn't know too much about them. Demons, he doesn't know, but he doesn't think they're real. He thinks they're, especially kind of the Judeo-Christian sense that we usually mean when we say that term here in the U.S. Or in the West. So he doesn't know about them. He doesn't think that they're, really out there. But ghosts, a lot of ghostly stuff kind of gets conflated with demons. And Sam does believe in ghosts. I, too, personally, believe in ghosts. I think ghosts are very much a thing. I don't think demons really are a thing. Again, not in that Judeo-Christian sense either, but ghosts are 100% a thing. So, but you got to read the book because you'll get those questions answered in the Q&As.
We have 5 minutes to go before we have to say goodnight to you. And I'm curious, for you delving into this different type of entertainment, shall we say, being an actor, being somebody who is looking to perform all the time, how have you grown as an artist since you took on this position of writer?
Dude, one of the biggest things has just been the amount of people and feedback. It has been so just inspirational and encouraging to kind of see not just my friends and family, but many, many, many other people enjoy my stuff. That was great. And then have I grown to also just kind of the from the reactions of people, it's different because, again, when you're writing a book, you're not necessarily getting, feedback from thousands of different people, like with each, chapter you put out effectively. But that's what was happening with Sam Whiteowl. So learning from what people's feedback was and what people's reaction was to different things in the letters really kind of allowed me to tailor my approach. And one of the things was people are interested in this stuff. So like I can actually put out longer letters with more information, and people will be interested in that. Also too, just realizing that, again, this kind of stuff, we live, unfortunately, in a capitalist society. We need to make money. So the fact that this stuff could sell and actually be a viable opportunity for living at some point, which now is happening, publishing the book. Yeah, that's a good question though. Yeah.
How far do you see the Sam Whiteowl story going?
Ooh, so it was the 10 letters, the original, and then there were the 9 after that, kind of like season 2. I gotta say, man, those were, I think that's kind of about it. I don't want to, I don't want to overdo it. Also, I will say too, well, you know what? No, if I did more, I don't think it would be Sam, because the problem with it is that Sam has a lot of stories he could tell. But one of the things that people really like about the stories is that I cover different cryptids, that they've never heard about, or different locations that they want to learn about. And the problem is with Sam, it becomes unrealistic. He can only do so much, right? He can only go so many places or deal with so many cryptids, that at some point it starts to kind of push credibility, and I'm making up reasons, that don't make sense for him to go and do things. So I think Sam's 19 letters, I think this is maybe just about it. Unless people want stories about, different experiences with the same cryptids, maybe I could do that. But if I were to do any other projects kind of in the Sam Whiteowl universe, I don't think it would be Sam. I think it would have to be, maybe it would be me or any, another hunter. Yeah.
I'm excited to read it, man.
It would, dude. Yeah. Well, in the I think Swamp Title, the Namahage letter, which was in the 2nd season, I did kind of experiment with this. I brought in at least 2 other hunters. Yeah, it was Keiko and Philippe. I brought in their stories as well. So that was kind of an interesting experience to get some other stuff. Other hunters too. So that could be an avenue. And then, that would also allow, covering different regions and stuff, because Sam's obviously based in the US, or out of the US. So, again, it's kind of the thing, I got to make up a reason for him to go to Japan. I don't know, if that would make sense. But if I had another hunter, I could do that, and I would have to do my research on, life in Japan, because I've never been there. One of the benefits of traveling so much and knowing about different cultures and stuff, is that I know about different places, but Japan, I'd have to do my research on that one.
We have just under a minute to go here with you tonight, and it has been an amazing show with you, Elias, and I really appreciate you taking the time, because I've loved this story for a long time, and I'll be honest with you, I'm going to go listen to it again tonight because I can. Tell everybody where they can find your website and pre-order your book.
Yeah, so if you go on eliasramos.com, just ELIASRAMOS.com, the website's there. You can learn a little bit more about me. You can see a picture of me with Adi, my other dog. And yeah, get information on the book, my updates. I've got social media there. I'm not a big social media guy, but you can go Facebook and Blue Sky. And yeah, I hope you pre-order the book. I think it's gonna be really good. You'll have illustrations, again, the new audiobook, bonus letter. It should be good.
Beautiful. Elias Ramos, everybody.
Thank you for having me, James.
We have Swamp Dweller. Then The wizard is back.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Buddy, that was awesome.
Oh, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate you having me.
Dude,
It's the first time.
You made my night. It flew on by, didn't it?
It did. It actually kind of did. Thought I was going to fall asleep more, but no, I'm actually like kind of awake. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Yeah, the
We'll
chat
talk
was,
soon, buddy, because I do want to get that book, okay?
yes, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Oh, you know what? And then I forgot to mention, people in the chat had questions and stuff. They can, I kind of directed them to my website, but you can actually send me an email. I've got all my contact info and stuff up there. So they want to send me an email, I'll answer questions, or find me on Facebook, Blue Sky, whatever. I'm there. But but thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it. You guys were awesome. And chat, you guys can hear me. Chat, you guys were awesome. Thank you so much. It was a good time. No, it was
Take
great.
care, my friend.
But all right, I gotta go to bed. It's 2 in the morning here. But
Take care.
thanks, you guys. Thank you for having me, Dave. Appreciate
Good night.
it. Good night.
I love that guy. I freaking love him. He's awesome. We'll be right back. All right. Let's bring in our man, the Wizard. There he is. Wizard, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Dave.
Right on. Right on. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. Sorry, my hair's a little crazy tonight. So there we go. That looks a lot better, right?
You look gorgeous. Gorgeous. Destiny Rocks, how are you tonight? Nice to see you. My fingers hurt. My thumb and my ring finger are killing me tonight. I injured them playing a game of mini sticks with my son. Rocked me. But then he scored literally with 1 second left in our game. Beat me 7-6. Big thank you tonight to Blue Cruise, Jennifer, Mel WD40, and of course Sweet Home Oregon for becoming a new member on our chat. And here we go. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We greatly appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Talar. Talar is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. I live in a rural town in Australia, and I'm used to seeing kangaroos and hares when I walk alone. This was on a Saturday, and I went for a walk on this trail that I had found. It was roughly 30 or 40 minutes away from my house. The trail follows a bike track till you reach a fork in the path. If you leave, you end up back at the beginning of the way. If you head right, you follow this very narrow trail. You can barely fit two people walking side by side on it. So I continue down this track, and usually I hear birds chirping and just general wildlife noises. Still, I couldn't hear a single noise but the wind blowing in the trees around me and the crunching of gravel under my shoes. So I continued my walk for about 10 or 20 minutes, when I started to pick up on the leaves crunching behind me as if someone was trying to follow me without being heard. They were trailing me, and I thought nothing of it at first, so I kept walking for just some time before I heard a massive tree crack. It was as if somebody or something had stepped on a large tree branch and broke it in half. This caused me to stop and jump back as I started scanning the tree line for whatever made that loud noise. I noticed I saw a large black figure duck behind a few trees. They were only about 100 to 200 meters away from me. Now, I knew this wasn't a kangaroo by the size of the figure. It's hard to describe, but I will do my best. It was like a 6-foot human, but its arms were abnormally long. They stretched down from its shoulder to the ground, and its head was tilted nearly 90 degrees sideways, almost as if it wasn't connected to its body. As I saw this figure duck behind the thick trees and shrubs, I stood there staring at where I last saw the figure. What scared me, and is engraved in my mind, was its eyes peeking through the bushes. Those dark red eyes that felt like they were staring into my soul. I felt helpless. I felt like prey. I felt like this was an apex predator. When I saw this, my whole body became fearful. All my joints started shaking, and this eerie fear washed over me as my body ran before my brain could even comprehend what I had just seen. As I was sprinting away, I could hear leaves and branches cracking loudly as if I was getting chased by something significant and fast. I never looked back as I was chased for what seemed like ages, my blood coursing through my veins and my adrenaline at an all-time high. That's when I heard the most high-pitched screeching sound that I've ever heard in my life. I didn't even know vocal cords could even remotely make these sounds. I immediately dove behind a big mound of dirt out of complete fear. I sat there trying to restrain my breathing as to not give away my position. I heard the sound of leaves cracking and coming from the other side of the dirt mound. I sat there holding my breath when I heard this thing bolt past me at such an incredible speed, but I was shocked that it didn't catch me earlier. It started getting dark as I sat there for what seemed like hours. I was waiting for this thing to return at any moment. Finally, I knew I had to move, or otherwise I would be here in the pitch black, and I would have to use my phone flashlight to navigate. And with that thing looking around, I knew I would be a dead man. So I nervously got up and sprinted back to town. The rest of the day was seemingly normal, and I have never heard or seen anything like that ever again. But I still refused to go down that trail, as I've never been that fearful for my life, and I'm grateful that I hid in that fork in the road, because I would not be typing this here today.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky story. If you want more just like that, including letters to a cryptid hunter, anyways, you can check it on Swamp Dweller on YouTube. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories right there for you to listen to. Hey, it's time for the wizard. Josh Rutledge is here. Yes, we call him the UFO wizard around these parts. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. I am off work tomorrow. My daughter and I are going camping a couple of days of the weekend with a bunch of MUFON people, and I'm hoping we're going to see some stuff. Just, a lot of good stuff coming up the next couple of days for me. So,
that is great. Have fun.
Thank you.
Have fun. It's those moments that are just really special. I was playing a game of mini sticks with my son before the show tonight, because that's what we do. Almost every night we have a game of mini sticks hockey on the floor. And he beat me with 1 second to go. And the really cool part about it was after the game, he just came up and he gave me a hug for about 5-6 minutes. We just sat there having a dad-son hug, and it was like, wow. Like, am I a blessed father or what? And you got to enjoy those moments, because unfortunately there is, not to sound depressive, but there is a last to everything.
Yeah.
So I'm just taking it in, man.
I try not to think about the last of everything instead of thinking about the first of everything,
Very true.
I'll be there for all the firsts.
Very true. UFO world got a little bit of news this week. I'm sure you're going to break it down for us.
Yep. I hope that I'm going to cover the UFO news that you're referring to. I'll lead off with just kind of today. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it today, but today the Munich airport has now closed due to drones. And in a press conference earlier in the week, the Danish authorities say that there is no evidence that Moscow is involved in the recent drones over Europe. So I guess we're back to UAP. I mean, isn't that kind of the stance that everybody took in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and everything when it was going on over here? So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Part of me says they're saying it's not Moscow to calm the residents, right? Because they don't freak out that Russia's invading their sovereign territory. But part of me is also like, well, maybe it's, they truly don't know what these things are, much like our authorities didn't know what they were in the Northeast. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
I'm very torn over these drones, because when I think of drones, I think of humans.
Well, I think that drones has become the a common cultural expression for lights in the sky that you're not sure if they're airplanes. Like, in my opinion, before drones, people probably would have called them UFOs. But now drones gives people a scapegoat, if you will, that is not culturally charged by using the term UFO. So I think, like I said, I think drone is just the new catch-all for things that we're not sure what they are, and we collectively as a society don't feel comfortable enough saying the UAP or UFO term. So drones fills in the blank.
It just, I don't know. I still think this is human made. I mean, a bunch of UFOs aren't going to just start hovering over airports for no reason. Now, I'm not saying it hasn't happened in the past. Look at the Chicago O'Hare incident. Okay, that's a pretty big incident right there. So I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but I think there's a lot of crap going on in the world right now, politically and with a lot of nations upset about certain things. And that's what I think it is. Drones are cheap for the military, and drones can be very effective, much more effective than a $50 million jet fighter, much more effective than a $100,000 missile. Drones are getting the job done. We see that in a lot of current battlefields right now.
Yeah. I mean, when we were in Vegas back, in May of this year, Shane and I, the magical beard, as you or whatever the nickname is, you've given him.
Knowledge.
Yeah, beard of knowledge. We were out on our way from Little Alien back to the other gate for Area 51, and we encountered 2 Reaper drones that were flying towards us. They came up over a mountain ridge. They were flying towards us, and then all of a sudden they banked really hard and went back towards Area 51. So yeah, drones are, like you say, they're more common. They're cheaper to deploy, cheaper in the sense too that because there's not a pilot in the cockpit, there's not a chance for a loss of human life if something happens to it. So although apparently according to Borland, suicide amongst drone operators is apparently a really big issue. So but anyways, I don't know. I'm not sold that it's truly UFO or UAP, but just I think the general nature of the term UAP, until we know for sure what it is unknown. So if we want to put all those unknowns in a bucket that we feel safe saying by calling them drones, then I think that's okay. But I don't think anybody should hear that there are drones flying over Europe and assume that they are man-made, man-operated drones.
What gives you an inclination that these might not be man-made?
The impunity in which they interact with the airspace that they're going into. And this was especially true in my opinion for the ones that operated in the Northeast, and maybe that's where my issue lies, is that I'm tying these 2 events as being related in some way, and maybe that's an incorrect association that I'm making. But in the case of like the New Jersey ones, a lot of times they would come from the ocean and then depart back to the ocean. never going to anything that we could identify that they were coming from. Now, the ones in Europe could easily be land launched, be programmed to fly, some pattern or some distance, and then turn around and fly back. I have also not spent a lot of time, honestly, investigating the drone sightings in Europe. I'm looking at headlines for the most part. But when I was looking into the ones in the Northeast, they also tend to fly or stay, let's say, stay aloft for longer times than most batteries on most, drones available at the commercial or personal level have the ability to do. So if it is military, that's very possible. It would also have to be like they sometimes were reported, the size of a school bus, probably to have that much battery capacity on board to keep them airborne for that period of time. Also in the Northeast, they oftentimes flew against the wind. So that would obviously chew up more battery power, but yet they were still able to stay aloft for a long time. I also think, though, in the Northeast, as the topic became more popular, then you had actual, human people that were going out and flying their drones so that they could be part of the story. And so because of that, we got some muddying of the waters between what was potentially UAP or, something else and what was potentially actually a man-made drone. Again, I have not taken the time to investigate all the sightings and look at the supposed videos of things that have been captured in Europe, and to do that true investigation. So maybe this is not in any way, shape, or form other than it is drones over airspace. That's the only similarity to the ones in the Northeast. Or maybe it is a stronger similarity and it just is waiting for somebody to dig into the data.
It's a story that we are going to continue to follow because we don't know what these are.
Yeah.
We don't.
I mean,
I know which way I'm leaning. I know which way you're leaning, but our opinions really mean nothing until we find out what's really going on.
Well, and I want to make sure I'm clear. Like, I'm not leaning towards UFO. I'm just leaning towards, because we haven't captured one to be able to name it, it is by definition unknown. Right? So a lot of times people associate UFO with aliens. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm simply saying it's unknown because we don't have one. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know who's operating it. We don't even know what the make and model is. Serial number. We have nothing about these things that are flying over Europe. So until we do, it is unknown.
5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. The UFO wizard Josh Rutledge is here for the report. What else you got for us?
All right. I think this will be relatively quick, but Avi Loeb and Ross Coulthart are having a little beef right now about the 3i Atlas comet or alien craft, whichever it is. Apparently on Ross's show, he said that, Avi Loeb is making a lot of assertions that aren't grounded in any type of evidence or science. And he basically says that, he talked to some astronomers and they said it's behaving like a meteor or comet would. And so that's the end of the story. Avi was on another podcast. I think it was part of a News Nation podcast. And he basically, clapped back and said that, Ross has been talking about UAP and all this stuff for 2 years. And the same people who would tell him that UAP are not real are the ones that he trusts about 3i Atlas. Like that, he points out the irony in that. And then he also said that, basically Ross is a journalist and not a scientist, and that Avi, is the one doing the science and publishing papers about 3i Atlas. So why would Ross take these astronomers' word over Avi Loeb's? So they're kind of beefing right now, back and forth a little bit.
I will tell you this. I know a lot of people criticize Avi Loeb, okay, the astrophysicist from Harvard. You don't get a job at Harvard if you're any sort of dimwit.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't get a job at Harvard running an astrophysics department if you have a Dave Scott type education. Okay. You just don't get that. This guy is brilliant. And it offends me for him on how many of his fellow scientists get so cranked up because he says, guys, we can't rule this out. That's all he's saying. We can't rule it out that it could be a spacecraft. He's already come out publicly stating that this is a meteor. He believes it's a meteor, but there are a lot of anomalies this thing has performed that make it that it might not be. And we got to keep an open mind to that. And I don't see where the problem is with that and why so many of his fellow scientists are just like, oh, there goes Avi again, thinking aliens, thinking UFOs. We don't know what it is. And just because we get some sound imaging that creates a picture from the James Webb Telescope doesn't mean we can actually see what that thing is.
Well, and I think when it flies by Mars, it'll be close enough that there's like an orbiter over top of Mars that'll be able to snap some closer photos, but it's not going to be like an iPhone picture. You're still not going to be able to probably tell a lot of detail about it. One of the like he was recently on, I can't remember her name. She was on Big Bang Theory. She played Amy.
Yes.
He was recently on her podcast.
Naeem Balak.
Yes, thank you. And his, like you just said, his whole thing to her is that the point is not that I'm trying to say, and I'm going to paraphrase here, that it's aliens. It's that I'm trying to say that you have to consider it as a possibility until we know for sure what it is. And he's like, and that's in my opinion, that's what's wrong with science, is that everybody jumps to their conclusions before they actually do the investigation and the science to make the determination if what they think it is actually what it is. And that's something that I've been complaining about for a long time. I think people who are like diehard scientists that have always been scientists, that science has become, in a way, their religion, because they are able to go on belief instead of knowledge. They are able to say they believe something is true, and so therefore they trust that it is true, as opposed to going through the scientific method, form a hypothesis, do the testing, measure the results, adjust your opinion, do it all over again, so on and so forth. So I think, go ahead, Dave.
And sorry to cut you off there, to add something to that. They should be excited that it could possibly be something else.
Right.
They should be excited. Scientists are about opening up their minds to possibilities that are unbelievable. Let's remember, a few hundred years ago, gravity was unbelievable.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Why are we trying to pigeonhole ourselves as humans when we've done so much with exploration of this planet and outside of it?
Yeah, and it really is a shame, like you said, that he's getting so railroaded by the rest of the folks, his colleagues, if you will, in the profession. I'm just happy that so far, at least, that his position at Harvard is not at risk. But I think that anybody with two brain cells to rub together could probably figure out that he's just voicing an opinion and he's not stating it as fact.
We continue with the UFO Wizard and the UFO Report after this.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear.
Cuckoo.
Yeah, I can't believe how much heat Avi Loeb takes from that.
Well, it's just like, John Mack took a lot of heat when he was doing his thing with all the UFO experience. I mean, it's unfortunate that science takes such a hard line against anything that could be beyond our current level of understanding. Like the way I look at it is like understanding that there might be a graviton, right? An actual particle that is gravity, right? Understanding that is just beyond our current level of understanding. But understanding like anything that's talked about in theoretical physics or quantum physics, under like growing as a scientific body to adopt any of those things as potential of being true and how they would affect the physical sciences, that seems like for most of science to be no, it can't happen. Like it's just it's almost like there's a divide in science where theoretical science and physical science they don't play nice with each other, and physical science can't look at anything in theoretical science and say, how could this apply to my situation or this thing that I'm trying to figure out? They just want to shuck it out the door and say, no, that's impossible. You theoretical physicists, you go on over there and sit in the corner and blah blah blah. So it bothers me. The same thing we talked about, I think, on Monday, where so many people in the UFO community are closed off to other things. It's true for a myriad of different industries where people who are in a specific industry or do a specific task are unable to think about how something outside of their scope or of influence may help them or benefit them in some way in solving some problem they're trying to solve. You need people to be able to really think not just outside of the box, but with the idea that perhaps the box doesn't exist at all.
That's very true. Very true. Hey, man, are we going to bring the story up about the NDAA? You have that one? Probably not then. I'll bring it up. I shall bring it up. By the way, for people who are fans of Askapol's Matt Laszlo, we have him booked as a guest coming up, I believe. Where is this? Oh, wrong month. Hold on. Let's go to October, please, Dave. We have him booked for... where is it here? Oh, it's not in here. Let me just check my text message.
The NDAA you're referring to is the National Defense Authorization Act?
Yes.
Okay. So make sure I'm looking at the same thing.
We have Matt Laszlo booked for the 16th of this month. All right.
All right, I've got it here, Dave. I can just work it in.
Okay. We had 25 seconds.
Okay.
$15. Thank you tonight to Blue Cruise, Jennifer, and Mel WD40 for the super chats. We greatly appreciate your love and support. And here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We have our good friend Josh Rutledge. We call him the UFO wizard around here, hanging on out, telling us the latest and greatest news in the UFO world. And of course, the Defense Act, Josh, it's getting ugly again.
Yep. I mean, there's some great stuff though in this proposal in the National Defense Act. Mainly in the, like I said, in the topic of UAP, where it has a lot of provisions in it. So it's Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Disclosure Act of 2025 is an amendment that has been proposed for the NDAA for the 2026 fiscal year. And, you know, a couple of things that to highlight, like it would establish an independent review board. The amendment would create a presidentially appointed Senate-confirmed review board to oversee the collection, review, and public disclosure of UAP records. It would also presume disclosure, so all federal UAP records would carry a presumption of immediate public disclosure. I mean, that's huge.
Mike Rounds came out yesterday because he's part of the Schumer-Rounds amendment, which is the UFO/UAP portion of the budget to try and get more funding for it. But he came out yesterday basically saying there are a number of Republicans now, not to pick on Republicans, so let's not go haywire over politics here, people. Okay. But we also know a lot of Republicans are very tied to the military industrial juggernaut that we call the complex that seems to control this story. And he believes that this is going to cause friction in trying to get this off the ground. And he doesn't believe it will pass through the budget or to the budget. What's your thought on that?
I mean, I actually agree. I mean, they tried to get it in 2024 and it ultimately came out. If you take I don't even know if you would call this a conspiracy theory at this point. But if you take the stance or the understanding even that there are people involved that don't want this information to come out, then those people for the last 70, 80 years have been working really hard behind the scenes to prevent that from happening. So it would stand to reason that they would also take a strong stance to prevent this amendment from going in to the NDAA. So I mean, I applaud the continued interest in trying to put some teeth behind the effort, but history and precedence tells me that it's going to get blocked. And I don't know that it's necessarily a Republican or a Democrat thing. I think it's just a matter of there are people who are being influenced by others who want this to remain quiet. And all it takes is a handful to talk to a handful to talk to a handful. And the next thing, this next thing you know, this thing dies. Just like it did in 2024.
And they're expecting it to die again, and we have to, maybe I'm speaking too forward here when I say this, but we have to remember that it doesn't matter which country you're in. There are always politicians who are bought off by the military industrial complex. Okay. You look at Mike Turner when he was in the Gang of Eight and he kept on shooting down the Schumer rounds bill in 23, in 24, and he stripped it so much and whitewashed it that there was nothing in there to help promote the UFO stuff. But then you look at his background. He has a background in the intelligence, being part of the Senate Intelligence Committee, number one. But more importantly, you look at who his constituents are. And who are they? Well, they're in Ohio, right by one of the most elusive bases in the world, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which employs, I believe, between 50 and 60,000 people. And they are all on defense budget from the military and from other scientific. It's basically the Area 51 of the East Coast.
Well, I mean, it was the original, basically.
Agreed.
Right. So until they decided to start using Area 51 for that purpose, if they ever really did, I don't know. We saw, of course, we know Bob Lazar said he worked at that other location near Area 51, but part of me also thinks Area 51 folks just took it and ran with it as a distraction from the actual place. Maybe it never actually left Wright-Patterson, the bulk of it anyway.
So it's not surprising that trend has continued, in my opinion. Josh, how about yours?
Same. I'm going to get the name wrong. Was it President Eisenhower that gave the speech about warning us about the military-industrial complex?
Yes, it was.
I think that's right. Okay. So, ever since that speech, essentially his words have come true. The U.S. at least, I don't know about other countries, but the U.S. at least, the bulk of the budget goes towards defense spending. And it's not all buying, planes and ships and bombs. A lot of it is, I'm sure, for a lot of these black budget projects and other things, all within the scope or realm of defense. So, you're right. The MIC, if you will, is a big headache, definitely in the U.S. When it comes to the ability for us to get this information out, to make it available. It's almost like, in my opinion, MIC is top, economy is second, and then everything else is kind of below it. Where the MIC is probably even a big chunk of the global economy. So it's unfortunate that that's the case, and that's ultimately why I think, like you say, because of the amount of money that is tied into it, this kind of stuff will ultimately die. I do think it's really interesting here, and I wanted to call this out. I don't know if you saw or not, but 2 days ago, Jay Sands gave an interview on Saucers and Saints podcast. And in that interview, he gave an account. He retells an account of a time when he was in the Legacy program while he was in the Air Force. And one of his jobs in the program was to listen in on phone calls and transcribe them. Okay. So he apparently is listening to a call between someone in the program and someone else in the program who had interrogated an Eben. And in this conversation back and forth, the Eben told the interrogator that in 50 to 70 years' time, the Ebens would return to collect their dead, prisoners, and technology, and to swap out their emissaries. So if you go off of the 1994 incident at Holloman Air Force Base, and you go out 50 years, that's somewhere around 2030 or so. Well, this amendment in this NDAA, if it goes through, one of the things is that UAP records would be publicly disclosed within 25 years. So those times seem really interesting. If Ebens are coming back to collect their stuff, and that happens to line up when times, to the time when UAP reports also have to be disclosed. I mean, is there something to read into there, or is it coincidental? I don't know. It's just really interesting that Jay Sands gave that testimony about them coming back. And if you go off of other events, or even stretch it to the 70 years, then that really lines up with the 24-year time frame. So I don't know. It's interesting, and that Ebens coming back is not something, or is something that I've heard before. It's actually a key component of the, oh my goodness, I'm going to blank on it. The Serpo, Project Serpo, is that, those were Ebens that were left here, and humans went with the Ebens to their home planet. And that they would be brought back eventually, and the Ebens that stayed here would go back to their home planet.
I get concerned about timelines. It's amazing how in the last 8 to 10 months, all of a sudden the 2027 talk or the 2035 talk has died right down. That we were going to get aliens on those dates. Mark my words. Some experts, so-called experts, were saying that it's happening. Why do you think that talk has died off?
People have made predictions about things happening in certain years for a long time. I mean, look at Nostradamus and folks like them. It's the difficulty, I think, is that especially in today's society, when we have such a short attention span, and we also have, let's say, a short you have a short ramp or whatever that you can walk on before. I can't remember the exact colloquialism, but you've got a short rope or whatever. Like, it's, you don't have a lot of leeway before I'm not going to trust what you have to say anymore. And so because of that, when people make these date, proclamations, and they don't come true, and then when they don't come true, they usually follow it up with, well, the human race wasn't ready to receive it, or it's because this person took office, or it's because this war happened, or like they've always got an out. And I think that for the most part, people are realizing that no prediction ever made that was nailed down to, a month or a year has ever really come true. People will often say, when something comes true, they'll say, see, I told you, I was talking to my mom this one day, but the person they're talking to can never corroborate the story, right? They claim authority that has not been substantiated after the fact, and somehow use that to then convince us that they then have the ability to predict the future into the future. But when that prediction doesn't occur, like I said, they've got some way to get out of it. Well, this happened, or this didn't happen, or, the moon was too close to the earth on this one day, and we actually had 2 blood moons this year. We're only supposed to have 1. And there's always a condition of why it didn't happen. But trust me, it's like the whole trust me, bro type thing. Trust me, I'll get it right next time. So
I have the same issue with a lot of psychics where, they're very good at predicting the negative. Oh man, like within the next couple of days, you're going to have something bad happen, and something bad does happen. But every time something positive comes along, it's, you got to wait 6, 8 months, 12 months before it happens. You're right around the corner. Just be patient, giving you the big that. And then the day comes, nothing happens. Well, Mercury was in retrograde and Jupiter was having an affair with Uranus. You know, I mean, we have all of this happening, and now you're going to have to wait another 8, 9, 10 months.
Yeah.
The date never gets there.
Well, and I'll tell you that one of the things that from a statistically speaking, you're going to have, if you break out all the stuff that happens to you in your life, it's probably going to be about equal between perceived as negative, perceived as positive. But I also think, just like we talked about, I think it was on Monday, we talked about, the idea that when you are buying a car and you're thinking about a specific car, you see that car everywhere. And that might be a reason why when you see one UFO, you see many, in succession. The same thing could be true about something negative. If someone tells you in the next few days you're going to experience something negative, you're psychologically, you're fixed on, oh no, something's negative is going to happen the next few days. It may not even be something that, if you hadn't known the information, would have affected you in any way. You wouldn't have thought about it. But because someone told you it was going to be negative, you then have an experience. And because you're thinking about it, it is more fresh in your attention span. And what does that do? That reinforces for you that the person you spoke to is what they say they are, right? So I want to be careful here, because I also am intuitive, but I won't tell you things like it's going to be negative or it's going to be positive. My intuition is in like, I feel like you're having a rough time or a rough go of it right now. And I like it's to help you tease things out. And I want to help you, the individual, get to the information you're getting to. I don't want to tell you it. So I want to be careful that I'm not trying to say all psychic people are harlatans and they're all trying to just get your money and get fame. But I do think that sometimes, whether intentional or accidental, they have these self-fulfilling prophecies because of the way the human brain works. And all that does is strengthen their position and cause that person to come back to them and come back to them and come back to them. And some of these folks charge a lot of money. And so, like, if you're coming back to them and saying, I don't ever have any money and I don't know where I'm going to get money to buy groceries this weekend. Well, maybe the answer is don't spend $100 a session with me and instead take that money and buy your kids groceries. But no one ever says that. So it's just, I've had some conversations with some psychics that have known things about myself or my family or my wife or my kids that were impossible for them to know because they had no time to research me. It wasn't an appointment that I scheduled days ahead of time where they could have Googled me or whatever. It was I walked into a bookstore and I sat down with someone and they did their thing and they knew information about me. And I'm a very like what's the word I'm looking for? Strict. I like the information that you give me can't just be happenstance. Oh, I think you grew up somewhere in the country. That's too vague. You got to give me more than that. So I'm always very skeptical until they give me the goods. But sometimes I have had some come through with the goods. So I don't want to, bottom line, I'm not trying to like turn all psychics against me. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I think sometimes just because of the way the human brain works, we get into these self-fulfilling prophecies. And so we use that information or that situation to substantiate somebody's claims when that substantiation may not be supported.
It is a good lesson for people out there who go to intuitives, who go to look for seekers of knowledge, that be careful with what you're looking for, because you wanting the message is sometimes all that person needs to take advantage of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like I've done a lot of readings for people for free. As long as it doesn't take up a lot of my time, I don't mind doing that, because at the end of the day, that's how I wanted. I just want to help people figure things out. And I usually take the stance of you pay what you can afford. And if you can't afford anything, that's fine too. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want, some millionaire to come and get free stuff from me. But at the end of the day, I just want to help people figure out what it is they're going through and what the other side of it looks like, or could look like. What are they trying to do? Where are they trying to get to? But you're right. There are some people who will take advantage of you, tell you what they think you want to hear, or even lead you to a place where you think you want to be, and you feel high when you walk out of their establishment, but then you start thinking about it and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I went in there for. Or this person told me I should quit nursing school, so I'm going to go quit nursing school and become cook or something. I don't know. But the idea is that you don't want to just take whatever somebody gives you and run with it. You want to take some time, pray on it, think about it, meditate on it. I am actually a firm believer in gut intuition, and I think everybody has it. And your gut will tell you what's right if you just listen to it.
Josh, it's been a great show once again with you tonight on Spaced Out Radio. It is always a pleasure to have you as our resident UFO wizard. Tell everybody where they can find your podcast.
Yep, you can find all my stuff at ourmysticjourneys.com. It's ourmysticjourneys.com.
Josh, you're the best. Thank you very much for another great UFO report. We will talk to you next week, my friend, as we say good night to all of you tuning on in, and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets are never required. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Thanks, bud.
All right, man.
Be safe camping, okay?
Yeah.
Watch out for them scorpions.
Well, the nice thing is up where we're going, it's like 50 at night. So
good.
It's getting nice and cool now. Got to break out the parka.
Right on. Right
All right,
on.
man.
Stay warm.
See you later. Good night, everybody in the chat. Appreciate it.
Have a good night, buddy.
Later.
All right. The Wizard says good night. I'm going to say good night as well. Tomorrow night on the show, our Keith Andrews is scheduled to be here. We don't know if he's going to be, if he has been let out of hospital just yet from a blood clot. We will find out very, very soon. But in case Keith can make it or not, Brent Thomas from the Paranormal Portal podcast will join us. We're going to go over a bunch of paranormal and supernatural news. And if Keith can join us, we'll talk more UFOs with Keith as well. Thank you tonight to Blue Cruz, Jennifer Richardson Elizalde, and Mel WD40 for the super chats. Special thank you to Sweet Home Oregon for becoming our latest member on our YouTube chat. So thank you, everybody, for a good night. I'm worn out. I got a big day tomorrow as well, so we'll see you tomorrow night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.